All right, I believe we are live. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, from wherever you are across the country, because this is a national event. Welcome to Can Startup Stories, and this edition of Can Startup Stories, Investor Tales, Trials, and Tribulations. This is one we've been wanting to do for a while because entrepreneurship and startup life isn't just about those entrepreneurs and founders that are making things happen. It is the entire ecosystem, and the investors, the VCs, are such an integral part of our community here that it's time to shine the light on them. And that is what we're going to do tonight. So we have 5 amazing, diverse speakers here from across the country that are going to share their stories, Can Startup Stories style, as we do. So it's however they want to present and tell their story, however they want to do that. So really excited, really looking forward to this tonight. So my name is Colin Weston, and I am the community leader for Startup Vancouver. And Startup Vancouver is one of over 40 chapters of Startup Canada across the country. And Startup Canada has been going for over 10 years now, and it is the voice for the over 3.5 million entrepreneurs we have in the country. And our why as a community, startup community, and also a Startup Canada, is to give entrepreneurs the best chance of success by connecting them to each other, to resources, to events, mentors, perhaps even investors, what we're talking about tonight. And that's what we do and why we do it, is to be that connective tissue within our ecosystem to make good things happen. So I do want to start by mentioning that I am joining you this evening from the traditional and unceded Coast Salish territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and very honored to be doing that this evening. And I know we have many people across the country that are also going to acknowledge that of the unceded territory that they reside on also. All right. See, we got Sheetal is joining us now. Hello. There we go. don't want to spoil anything. We'll see her in a moment. So I got ahead of myself with the slides here. So Startup Vancouver, best way to connect with us is through social media. We're very, very active on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So if you want to connect with us and find out about more events, or even, as I said, to help build the community and engage with us, that's what we do. Or as we build our team here and write the next chapter, we've been in for 4 years now with Startup Vancouver and found our voice and the value that we add. If you want to get involved, because we are looking to have a succession plan with new leadership to take it to the next level. So if that's something that interests you, to make it more diverse, resilient, and sustainable, please let me know, because I'd love to talk to you about that. So this evening, if you're into the social media live tweeting or a social media posting thing, please include Can Startup Stories as the hashtag so that we can track the impressions that we have to see the value that we're adding for everybody here, especially for our 5 speakers here. We want to celebrate them, shine the light on them, and give them as much of a bump as we possibly can here tonight. So very quickly, with Startup Vancouver and Startup Canada, we do have 2 pillars, 2 core values. And the first one is that we collaborate rather than compete. And this is exemplified and manifested in events like this. And we could not do an event like this without the amazing partnerships that we have with organizations throughout our innovation ecosystem. And OKR, which is Old Kent Road Financial, I've had a great relationship with them for a couple of years now. And with Bhavik, who you're going to meet this evening, who is our co-host and MC for tonight, we've been bashing this one around for a few months, and they stepped up very generously and offered to be the presenting partner tonight. So without them, we would not be able to bring you this impactful event this evening. And with our supporting partners, we have Futurepreneur Canada, which has been supporting Can Startup Stories for some time now, and also our good friends at SFU Venture Labs, that without them, they're doing all the behind the scenes work. We've got Noelle and Pauline, who are being the executive producers tonight, and herding cats, which is us, to make all the magic happen. So thank you to SFU Venture Labs and to Noelle and Pauline. I also want to acknowledge our good friends at Startup Canada, who have turned this into a national event through their promotion of it across the country. And this event is part of the Startup Community Empowerment Fund, which we are going to talk about a little bit more between speakers. So thank you very much, Startup Canada, for putting this fund together to also help make these events happen. And the other pillar that is very important for us as far as our core values, and that is that diversity inclusion piece. And that is to make entrepreneurship welcoming and inviting for everyone, no matter gender, age, sexual orientation, ethnicity, new Canadians, disabled entrepreneurs. We celebrate and invite and welcome everyone, tech and non-tech. And we've done this through Van Startup Stories, which pre-COVID, we did 11 of them in venue over a year and a half, starting in 2018. This is just one example, of course, celebrating LGBTQ entrepreneurs. And in 2 months from now, we'll be celebrating Black entrepreneurs for the second year in a row in July. In September, we'll be celebrating mom and dad entrepreneurs, first time we've done that one. And then in November, we are going to be celebrating Indigenous entrepreneurs for the third year in a row. And that event just keeps getting bigger and bigger. We're very, very proud and honored to be part of that. So also, if you're not able to watch all this event tonight, hopefully you can all stick around for the 2 hours this evening. Or if you want to rewatch one of these events, one of the speakers, or see some of the previous events. 2 months ago, we celebrated women entrepreneurs. In January, mental health awareness for entrepreneurs, impactful speakers, dynamic stories. You can go to our YouTube channel there, and why don't you subscribe and like while you're there? I guess that's what they say. That's what YouTubers say, right? So I guess that's what I'm supposed to say. This evening, we plan this to be an interactive and engaging 2 hours of conversation. The way this is going to work is our usual format that everybody seems to love, and that is each of our speakers has 12 to 14 minutes to tell their story any way they want, and then Bhavik is going to then step in as the MC, and he is then going to curate and moderate the questions that all of you put forward in chat or the Q&A. And he also has some questions that he's going to roll out too. And occasionally I'm going to jump in also to throw a question or two out that I might have also. So yes, please be active here because we'd love to hear your thoughts. Once again, my name is Colin Weston. You can connect with me there through my email, also through Twitter. Probably the best way to get a hold of me. Thank you so much for joining this evening. I hope you enjoy, I know you'll enjoy the 5 stories you're going to hear tonight. I'm excited to hear them, and I hope you are too. So with that, I am going to turn it over now, and perhaps we can stop sharing the screen, to Bhavik Chauhan, who is the Vice President of Business Development with OKR Financial. Bhavik, good to see you, my friend. Good to see you again.
You too, Colin, and
I'm
love
looking
this.
forward to this.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, we've got some 5 impactful people, and it sort of hits the mantra for OKR Financial because we're trying to make a big impact on the Canadian tech ecosystem. Recently, we made a big announcement saying we've got $150 million to deploy into this tech ecosystem. So, you know, entrepreneurs, you know, ideas and things like that, you know, reach out to us. So what do we do at OKR Financial? We sort of, you had a brief slide up there, is we have money to sort of deploy into the system, and we utilize 3 different verticals. And the first one is we leverage government funded programs, whether it's tax credits, film tax credits, digital media, or SHRED, which is the common one, or the government grants. There's ways around that as a startup to sort of maximize on its funding. So we have ways and tools and sort of say non-dilutive financing, leveraging that without giving away your company. So that's one of our main focuses. And then we have asset-based lending as well, where the banks and BDCs can't help you out, but we have mechanisms and ways that we may be able to explore and get you some money through the door. And then we have our venture fund, which we launched last summer, building that slowly. We're investing in companies to help them grow. And if it makes sense at the right time, you know, OKR can be a good synergy partner. So, I mean, we can keep going on about OKR, how great we are and making an impact, but we also work with some great partners like Startup Vancouver and the other organizations nationally, trying to educate them, you know, working as a community and working with partners is how you're going to grow. And that's how we've grown. We've been working with a lot of partners nationally, whether it's in advisory capacity or financing. So I think that's OKR Financial. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me via my email and LinkedIn and other social media slots, or anyone in my team as well. So I'm not sure if you want to introduce the first guest.
Not me. Now I am done. This is now you're running the ship now, my friend. So I'm going to turn off my camera and my mic now. Hand it over to you to introduce our first speaker of the night, who is Kookai Chaimahawong. So please, there's Kookai's joined us now, and take it away. You two.
There you go. So pleasure to have you online, Kookai, and let's hear your story. She's as you can see, the VC associate of Pangaea Ventures, and so let's hear about your story, Kookai. How did this all begin for you?
Thank you. So do I share my slide here? Because I sent the slide in before earlier.
Yeah, I believe if you scroll across, it should be your slides now.
There we go.
I don't think so. My slide's really long. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, perfect. Great. Awesome. So I thought I would do something fun today because, this is sort of my second event of the day. And so, when Colin reached out to me and said that, he wanted to hear sort of like super raw story, I thought, why not get vulnerable in front of the crowd too? I feel like entrepreneurs do that for us every day, every single pitch that I listen to, basically. So my name's Kookai. I'm an associate at Pangaea Ventures. I'm at the office today, based in Vancouver. Pangaea has been investing in hard tech companies, so advanced materials innovations, for the past 21 years. I joined the fund about 3 years ago. I'm the only associate at the fund currently. And way back when, per the slide, I used to introduce myself as the least likely venture capitalist. Anyways, I practiced this once. I thought I was going to do a TEDx-style, so I hope that it is within 12 or 14 minutes. It could be very well too short or too long, but please cut me off if I go over time. So I just want to go over my story, why, I used to think that way. So I am originally from Thailand, from Bangkok City, born and raised, actually raised from around the world. I grew up in Australia, in London, in Los Angeles, in Paris. So, I call myself like a third culture kid because, I kind of identify myself as, the West and the East, kind of the bridge between the two. And that's just, who I am. And I love, all cultures. So, I am from Thailand. After, I graduated from my undergrad from the university in Thailand, I joined a startup social enterprise. I was the first hire. Startup and social enterprise were a very new concept in Thailand. No one ever heard about startup. No one ever heard about social enterprise before. In fact, social entrepreneurship in Thailand at the time wasn't even registered as a business. So, we were sort of the first wave of creating sort of such movement way back when. My parents were so confused, when I told them that I am working at a startup because they had no idea what a startup was. But one thing rang true. My startup that I was working at the time, had a mission to, get the public participation into supporting social and environmental causes. So, the platform that we had is very much similar to Groupon. But, instead of purchasing coupons, you select, which donations you want to support. And in return, you get the rewards from the, businesses. So anyhow, the business really was sort of something fundamental to myself and to my values, which is, the social aspect of things and supporting things that are larger than just, businesses. And afterwards, I got a chance to work at the United Nations. So, I worked at UNDP, launched the SDG goals, which you probably have seen, the 17 colorful goals that we're hoping to achieve by the year 2030. UN at the time saw that, I was really creative in bringing businesses together with the public and creating some sort of like innovation kind of like models to support social and environmental causes. So they were like, why don't you just come in and help us with, this partnership strategies? We want to get the private corporations to be interested in the SDGs, which at the time, no one knew of. Now SDGs are more relevant than ever. At the time, really no one was talking about the SDGs, so we had to start from scratch. And they were like, oh, we also want the public to, be aware about, the goals that we're trying to achieve here, collectively, globally as well. But then I realized it was such an uphill battle. I actually struggled a lot to actually get the public to be interested. Maybe we're from a developing country, Thailand is still developing, is still emerging. It's not exactly like Canada. People need to feed themselves first before thinking about the social aspects of things. And so I found myself, having to convince, the public and also private corporations. I used to call myself a Robin Hood at the time because I feel like I would steal, try to steal money from, the spare changes of corporations to support social and environmental causes. And so that actually brought me to Canada. So I realized that, if really to move the needles in the world, you need, private corporations, to be supportive and to change the ways that they do things, I need to understand their businesses. And so that led me to UBC Sauder School of Business. You got to give a shout out to them actually, because I selected UBC and Vancouver in particular because of the sustainability integrated course into, the businesses program. It's more than just, finance, accounting. It's actually how do you, integrate sustainability, sustainable mindset in launching new products, in accounting, in all aspects of businesses. And so, when I was a part of Sauder, Pangaea Ventures actually reached out to me. And at the time, all my friends asked me, why? Why you? You didn't come from a finance background. You worked at a social enterprise. You worked at the UN. Why you? Why a VC would reach out to you? And the reason that everyone asked that, and I think, this graph probably explains it best. I was from the opposite spectrum imaginable at the time. Now I have a point that it's actually merging, and I think we're leading sort of that change. But it was really an opposite spectrum from just pure impact, making missions to investing for the highest financial returns. I didn't understand myself too, because I was really puzzled by the fact that everyone's really driven to think about what's the return on investments, what's the dollars, and then here I went, going, what about the impact? But the reason that Pangaea actually invited me to sort of join the fund at the time was that they were curious about the impact that was being created by the portfolio companies as a result of their investments. And so, I got a chance to obviously look at the portfolio companies. We invest in, clean technologies, ag technologies, health technologies, food technologies. And so, there are definitely impact being created as a result of our investments. We just never quantified it. So, I sat down with the team, quantify the impact that was being created, and try to look at ways that we can integrate impact investing into our strategies. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is where I wanted to be. This is sort of the key industry that is going to solve my frustration. Pangaea is backed by 25 strategic corporations, chemical companies. There's Adidas, which is probably most well known to everyone. And so that kind of solves sort of, everything kind of comes together and makes sense. I felt like a Robin Hood trying to rob corporations to support social environmental causes. Here I am finding innovations that corporates can adopt, and for us to invest in and also making money from it. And you could argue that it's more sustainable if you're able to actually invest in companies that are able to sustain themselves versus just donation. And I realized this is where I wanted to be. I don't know how long I have left, but I'm just going to keep going. But, through sort of that realization, it still feels like an out of place, an out of sort of world for me. This is a story that I love telling people. The uphill battle of being a female investor in this space is real. The first time I ever, got a chance to go to an industry event for only investors only is run by the CVCA, the Canadian Venture Capital Association and Private Equity Association. I was the only female and minority there. But it's not just that. And that was the first time ever I felt like, oh, wait a minute, I look different. I sound different. This is something odd. But I was actually asked by my current friend today, but at the time we weren't friends. He actually asked me to pour him a glass of wine because he thought I was a waitress. And just let that sink in a little bit here. I worked at the UN. Actually, I shared the same floor as UN Women. So, I knew about the diversity problems. I never experienced it myself. And then that was the time that I realized that, wait a minute, VC has a diversity problem. And it's a really big problem. So I started, looking around at different funds and realizing that there's barely any women in the fund. And then I started looking at how VC makes investment decisions, just being a part of sort of the deals team, sourcing and all that. And I realized, wait a minute, if everyone's thinking the same thing from the same background, we're only investing in a certain types of startup companies. We're never going to provide that fundings to the other untapped opportunities just because the people around the table don't understand the problems that are being solved through the solutions, whatever, be it femtech, being, the technologies for immigrants or anything similar along the lines. And so for me, that was such an obvious truth. And I just didn't understand why no one talked about it. 3 years ago, diversity issues were identified, but it wasn't talked about it as much as today. So me as an investor, and this is something I want to share to entrepreneurs because, sitting on this side of the table, I see vulnerability from entrepreneurs all the time. they get so scared when they're pitching to us. But investors go through the same things too. I'm an immigrant. I'm a woman. I didn't have an industry knowledge. Imposter syndrome, this kind of like key phrase, I never heard it. I actually never understood the terms until I joined Pangaea Ventures. Until, I was 20 something years old, I never heard of the terms imposter syndrome until one day I realized, oh my goodness, I have it. And this is actually shared by all my other colleagues that are in this industry, actually not just female, anyone really, any investors do go the same things. And then, because I was from the outside of the industry, I didn't fit into the culture. I didn't speak the same language. I didn't see the same opportunities. And so it took me a while to actually realize my unique power of being different in the venture capital world. I bring a unique lens to the opportunities. Today, if you go on our website, you'll see that Pangaea Ventures really talk about the impact. We actually say we're impact investors. We are launching an impact fund. We have today 50% female partners. I'm not saying that I'm the reason for that, but when I joined, we didn't have female partners. Right now, we have 50% female partners. And you think that you're just a junior person as part of the team, and this goes to everyone, whether entrepreneurs or corporate employees. Like, you think you're just a small sort of employee, but I think you actually are changing and making the difference. I look at companies differently. I source companies differently. If you talk to investors, sourcing is one of the most important things because you want to find opportunities where it's not a lot of competition and all that. I looked at so many companies when I was working at Pangaea on the first month because I was so excited. I was so curious. Oh my goodness, there's companies that can 3D print, human organs. There's companies that can do X, Y, Z. That it was so sci-fi for me, and I was just genuinely interested. And I think that's the reason that they hired me, because I brought on these companies in front of my team and they're like, where did you find these companies? And I'm like, well, I just looked at, where I was interested. I found a community of investors instead of, I felt at the time that, it was very transactional in this industry, to be honest with you. Everyone was just doing their own things. Everyone kind of knew each other, but no one was really friends. And so I started getting people together. Why don't we go out for drinks? Why don't we go out for, fun conversations? And then we have a community of investors. We're all friends now today. And so this is something that I think I turned, upside down from the imposter syndrome and all that into a superpower. I'm almost done. And so, I put together this really quickly here, but it's not to sort of brag about my achievement or anything like that. But I look back at the journey of my career and, my investing career for 3 years, and I realized that I've been given such an amazing opportunities to actually go out there and showcase my story and showcase my expertise that I've developed, industry knowledge that I work so hard to acquire, and the investors that I want to become. And I think it's being recognized by the industry. It's not just the event today that, Colin invited me to, but it's also the other industry events, aerospace event, packaging events. They want to hear different thoughts. And I think this is a proof that the diversity of thought is being recognized by the industry. So this is my last slide. Yes, this is my last slide. So, going back to, before that I said it was like an uphill battle. I think, at the end of the day, whatever work that you're doing, and I think entrepreneurs 100% understand that this is something, the mission is often larger than the career or the job that you want. I now have a community of Canadian women in VC. There's about 200 of us that are within the membership in the community. You can search Canadian Women in VC. The website should come up. There's a Global Women in VC that I'm a part of, and I'm really active member and taking parts in. There's about 3,000 investors in the community there, and we're all trying to support each other. Shout out to Canadian Women in VC. I'm on the committee. I just joined this year. Our sort of mission is actually to change the face of venture capital. And when we were thinking about that, we wanted to change the face of venture capital to reflect Canadian ecosystem, actually globally. We want to see the types of innovations that are, going to be funded, going towards, the people that are not just like look the same. So yes, that's sort of the end of my story.
Well, thank you very much. I know you rushed through this. I'm sure there was a lot more you could have gone through and told us. So diversity is huge. Obviously, it's been a big impact in the last couple of years, especially showcased on media and things like that. So one of the first questions is, as you're still facing diversity, I know you're making an impact and a young career in investing in the investment industry, 3 years, so you're still very young in the industry in that sense. Yeah. So when you're looking to make an investment, you're making impacts. Does this diversity come to the top of the chain of qualifications for investing in a company? Do you look at that first? Is that like an important criteria, or that's just one of many? Would you say? If you had to choose top three, would it be a top three criteria?
Yeah, it's not the top three criteria today, but I think because, who you are as investors kind of reflect that a little bit. Like, I'm not saying that I'm looking for only like a Asian female, founders to fund, and that kind of checks the box that, adding to the list of our portfolio companies, to the many, I don't know, look and feel that we have, is not really that. But I think who you are as investors will reflect through the opportunities you see on the investment side of things. I think you will see more opportunities and more problems to be solved than just what you're familiar with. And so I think that's one of the key influencing decision. The diversity of, management team is a key is a consideration. We do measure the impact, the diversity, through our impact reports. It's not being prioritized right now, but I hope that it will be eventually.
Okay. And then as you're making these investments with companies, how often do you do top-up investments or reinvestments in the companies you're already working with? Is that common practice for your firm or for yourself, or not really? Once in and then sort of move on to the next project?
Yeah. So a little bit about our investment criteria, I guess. So we invest $3 to $5 million US into companies with early commercial revenue, being in hard tech, so physical products. I always say science-based products. If it's something you can touch with science behind it, that's a fit for our fund. We always reserve capital to follow on, because oftentimes it's more than just software companies where companies need more money and more time to actually scale, and so we will always reserve money for our follow-on investments.
All right. Now, on a personal note, as a female Asian in the investment world, so coming from a background of color as well, how did your family react that you're not doing a typical career that's stereotypical to what, you're not being a doctor, you're not being an accountant, you're not being a lawyer, you're going into the investment world? How did that impact you personally? Because there's a lot of young people out there that they are getting pushed into that typical career, as we know. What advice would you give them based on your experience?
I'll be honest with you. My parents don't know what venture capital is. And venture capital is a very new concept for Asian countries. I would say Southeast Asia, except for Singapore. And that's something that I hope to be able to, gain my expertise, being at the fund here. I'm not saying that I'm going to go home, but, that's something that I consider all the time. VCs is a very new concept still in emerging markets. In Thailand, I probably think there's one VC fund and the rest is CVC, corporate venture capital funds. And that's actually the wave we see, globally too. It always starts with corporate venture capital funds. And then with the successful, entrepreneurs that have exited the companies, they would then take the money to start a VC funds. We don't have that kind of success stories yet at where I'm from. So actually, not just my parents. When I explain to my friends what I do for a living, I can't say that I'm a venture capital because they don't understand what it is.
Okay. And then if you had to give, and I got a last question here before we move on to the next presenter. If you had to give your younger self advice from what you've learned now going through this journey you've got to so far, what's the biggest piece of advice you'd give yourself?
I would say this is my favorite motto in mind, I guess. It sounds cliche, but I truly believe rising tide lifts all boats. Like, this is I know some people hate this saying, but I actually think that if you want a better situation for your careers, you want a better positions for yourselves, you need to support the community. I actually think, we're on this slide, which is perfect. I actually think it's my duty to make it easier for other people to join venture capital funds who are from the unlikely backgrounds like myself before. I have the duty to make it easier and pave the way for other females to actually enter this career, and thinking that is also viable, because it's very intimidating to be an investor, because people always ask, what do you know, right? And so, in order to increase the diversity of this side of the table, you need more people to understand that this is a viable career. So, I probably have spoken to a lot of people. I don't know if anyone I've spoken to is listening today, but I hope it reflects through sort of like my participation in conversations that I engage with, that I'm very passionate about helping people beyond myself.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure you got more stories to tell. And hopefully, we get to know more about you, Kookai, right? As we get to know, and hopefully we'll get to meet soon and have a drink as well. So,
Definitely.
Colin, I don't know if you want to add to that.
The one last thing I did want to add is we do have one question here from the audience I wanted to add. I don't think you covered this one yet. Leslie Duncan, who's our good friends at SFU Venture Labs, who's co-hosted this show
See in the
before.
Q&A.
Yeah, so Leslie asks, Kookai, what is the biggest thing you think women founders can do to get past the stereotypes in tech science investing?
To get past the stereotypes, I know it's very easy to sort of feel like, you're the odd one out in the room. That's something that I shared with my presentation, and that's the same with, women entrepreneurs as well. But I think the first thing first that you can do is to get rid of that mindset. It is to show up as a scientist versus a female scientist. I'm showing up as an investor, not a female investor. I'm showing up as, a venture associate, not, an immigrant venture associate, if that makes sense. I think that's something that you have to get past first, because the way you show up will reflect, and how you think about it too, will actually reflect through your presentations and how you kind of pitch your stories as well. I think, that's the most important thing, and what you can do like today. Aside from that, data, if you're a scientist and you're creating new novel products, if it's something truly unique and novel, people are going to notice it. People are going to see it. And investors that don't see it, maybe they're not worth working for or working with, right? I think there's two things here that people need to know, not just women, that you can actually select who you want to work with. Investors don't always select you. You select investors too. So that's something to keep in mind. If they don't align with your values, maybe it's time to look elsewhere, but also obviously take that advice with a grain of salt as well. Maybe there's something to, be taken here, whether that's scaling challenges or whatever it is. But I think you have to kind of just get rid of that mindset and just show up as a scientist.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm sure you can't hear the round of applause, but it is happening.
Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, thank you very much. All right, so our next guest is Thealzel, founder and president of eFund, and a leadership role with many different organizations. I don't think she sleeps. She's always she's working or at some sort of event. So let's hear your story. How it all began, how your journey's been going for as long as it's been running so far, and how you've been sustaining it.
Thank you, Bhavik, and thank you everybody for being here. It's such a thrill to be here and listening to all these inspiring stories. So I am the founder of eFund. It is an angel investment fund. It was founded in 2011. And my story actually spans 3 centuries. So I'm going to be talking about 3 centuries worth of stories to tell you about how I got to where I am here with eFund and all the great people that came along this journey with me. So in the 19th century, when my great-grandparents came to this country, they were working on the railroads, they were working in the factories, they were domestic servants. And when they scraped up enough money, they were able to be small businesses. It wasn't until the 20th century when the laws changed in this country, and my father was the first person allowed to go to post-secondary education. He eventually became a prophet at Queen's University. So what did I do? I decided to follow in my father's footsteps as well. I wanted to become an academic. No, that's not a picture of me, but it could have been me because I was working in the lab and I was working on a technique that was supposed to cure cancer. That was a big deal. It still is a big deal. And that's where I got bitten by the bug that, so to speak, to work in healthcare related industry. So I was really into healthcare. But alas, an academic life was not for me, much to the disappointment of my father and other family members at the time. So Kookai, I can certainly relate to you because I did not become an academic. Instead, I went off to Africa to work with some amazing entrepreneurs. These are women from Malawi. I was posted there in Malawi. I was working for the USAID as well as the UNDP, as well as for the World Food Program in the waning days of the Mozambican Civil War. But what amazed me about these women here, they're Malawian women, was that they were very resilient and they were very enterprising. And the businesses that they began, because their menfolk were all fighting the Civil War, was absolutely amazing. But they were held back by a lot of systemic infrastructure that was not conducive to entrepreneurs, whether you were male or female. So that was discouraging, but I was always in awe of their resilience and their imagination of starting entrepreneurial enterprises. They could be anywhere in the world, and I think they would do really well. So off I went back to First World, this time to Vancouver. I hadn't lived in Vancouver before. I fell in love with Vancouver when I was an academic, and I thought, well, this is the place for me to go be, because it was just starting to get a reputation for its entrepreneurial ecosystem, both for entrepreneurs and for investing. So I thought I would get into this and start helping other entrepreneurs and investors really create a stronger entrepreneurial ecosystem. Then I did a little bit of research. After all, I am an academic at heart. And I find that these statistics, not exactly encouraging, but, persevere. I mean, my great-grandparents, when they came to this country in the 19th century, my parents in the 20th century for their gains. I mean, certainly if they could do it, I could do something in the 21st century. And I came across this quote from Fred Wilson. It takes 7 to 10 years to get to real liquidity in a portfolio of early stage venture investments. You can't shortcut it. It just takes time, but come years 7, 8, 9, and 10, the returns will start coming in. And then what it hit me, not only am I facing high business failure rates for these entrepreneurs, but I'm also looking for a very long-term hold. Okay, so then this is where I had the startings of a new kind of fund, something that was 21st century. And I had two goals. Obviously, the first goal was to have quality investees in our portfolio. And we went about it in a number of ways. We formed this fund where we would build it on 3 active pillars based on the research. There's active deal screening, thorough due diligence, and post-investment participation. And the research shows that you get a better odds of having successful entrepreneurial enterprises if this is what you practice. So we were really interested in making sure that we had the right crowd of people to help these entrepreneurs. We also were very deliberate in choosing where we want to invest. We were angel funds. So we had a certain sweet spot where we would like to invest in entrepreneurs. Kookai talked about venture capitalists. Venture capitalists are really awesome. They are great when the companies are ready to scale. That's where venture capitalists really shine. When the ideas are just starting to form, You know, we live in a country where there's great infrastructure that support that. But where angels come in is making sure that there's a robust business model. And that's where we fit in. We figured that we would help the entrepreneurs with our domain expertise, get them to accomplish the amazing things that they want to accomplish, and we'd be in it together as a partnership. We even develop formal processes and how to evaluate the entrepreneurial ventures. We have a great ecosystem here. There's a lot of angel group meetings in the area. I manage the Vantech, which has been around for a couple of decades. There's also Angel Forum that's managed by my fellow board director, Peter Dorsman, and his wife, Irene. There's Capital Investment Network on the island. There's the demo days by all the different universities and accelerators. We have a really rich funnel of great entrepreneurial ventures, and we run them through our paces, and eventually we invest. And you know what? We've got some great companies in our portfolio. We made 49 new and follow-on investments into 33 different companies. We've already had 6 exits. Okay, 2 of them were write-offs, but you know, remember those stats on what the business failures can be. But we're actually have now 27 current investments spread over a number of different industry sectors. You note that there's a great deal in health tech, agri-tech, clean tech. I'll tell you, we were social impact investors before social impact became a thing. Our goal number 2, we wanted quality investors who share our values. We wanted a community-based venture fund, angel investment fund. We wanted a culture of people who want to help entrepreneurs and give back to the community. And of course, we are investors. So we're not a philanthropy. We do look at returns. You know, there was a study that I was part of back in 2010 that said that the average angel investor was white, male, and age 52. And I'm proud to say that we're in our 140 plus e-fund investors. We have almost a third who are female and almost a quarter who are not white. So we're working towards diversity. But the thing that we share with all of us is that we do share a sense of community. We're here to make a difference in investing in the entrepreneurs who believe in making these great ventures that will have transformational effect on our society. And it's a culture of us helping each other, helping the entrepreneurs to make good returns. It is an investment fund after all. So like I said, we have over 140 investors in eFund. We've done about 25 investment teams. These are the way eFund works. It's a bottom-up approach. It's not me and my fellow directors coming down and say, I like this venture, make it happen. It's a bubble up in which means that our eFunders go to all these angel investment group meetings. They see entrepreneurs pitch. They decide that a venture is worth the time of their energy and money, and they form teams and they do the due diligence. Then they make a recommendation to the board saying that this company is worth our investment in time and in money. And for that, we have performance fees to reward those e-funders who do take that time. We also have education and learning by participating and investing. We've got networking, demo days, accelerators, pitch events. We're active members of all these logos that you see on this screen. And these are all just some of the many sources of angel deals that we look at eFund. And I'm going to have an ask. We're always looking for volunteers to assist with pre-screening, due diligence, member and community engagement, and marketing communications. It's because eFund is formed with the community in mind, and that's how we we'd like to operate. So if you're interested, we're located in the SFU Venture Labs, and please give us a call. Email us. That's our email, and if you want to be part of one of our events, that's how you can find out and sign up.
Well, thank you for that. And so we do have a question here from Connor. Any advice or insights for those moonlighting and scraping together funds to start a venture? And as an investor, is the above situation typically considered too risky?
Well, if you're moonlighting and scraping, keep at it, because eventually it will take over. You know, here's a 21st century story. My son is an accountant, and he's got a regular day job, but he does moonlight in establishing an e-commerce business. So he's scraping and scrimping on the side. So I think that shows a lot of good traits of an entrepreneur, especially if you persist and you actually turn it into a viable business that will do amazing things.
So same question I asked Kookai as well. With your amazing career to date, where you got to in your journey, if you could talk to your high school self many years ago and say, okay, what's one big piece of advice you'd give yourself from high school to now that you've learned through your journey?
Embrace life. It's going to throw you a lot of curveballs, but it's meant to teach you lessons. I know there's a lot of times where I've sat down many, many times and said, okay, I've learned my lesson. Let's move on. Please, universe, let's move on. But life happens to you for a reason. And I'm a big believer in that.
So as an early investor, when you started doing this, getting involved in investing in companies, when you had your first failure that the project just didn't work out, how did you react? And, you know, what did you take from that? What did you learn from that? Because obviously still doing it, you didn't give up.
I actually did not mind the failures in the investment if they were business failures. Things happen. Customers didn't buy what you thought they were going to buy. The distribution chain didn't work the way you thought it would work. Supply chain problems, all kinds of problems. That doesn't faze me. What does faze me is when there are people problems, when there are conflicts between key members. And it's not something that can be attributed to business. It's just human relations. And that's what gets me.
So moving into that, and yourself, me, and many people on the panel today, we see a lot of companies pitching. And then we have this terminology about a crazy founder who's really great at building a tech, but not very good at running a business, but they don't want to let go of control. How do you sort of persuade them to do that when you're talking to these companies that are looking for, and you've got a crazy founder who's really good at tech, but just not good at business? How do you persuade them to let go of control?
You let the crazy founder be good at what he's good at, and say, these are the things that you should do, and because you're awesome at it. These are things that other people can do because they're awesome at it. Together, you'd be more than an awesome team.
Okay. Colin, would you like to chime in? Do you have anything on your end?
I will. More of a comment than anything else. What I love about Thealzel's story, I love Kookai's story, it really embraces the why we wanted to do this event, because we're trying to humanize investors. And a lot of people, whether they're entrepreneurs or the greater population that doesn't really know all this crazy stuff we do, like my dad, who still doesn't understand like what I do. And I guess Kookai, you can definitely relate to that, or most of us here, our parents or friends can relate to that. We see Shark's Tank and Dragon's Den, and most people think, well, that's the way this whole venture capital investor angel thing works. And of course, that is a caricature. It's not real life. So I'm just loving the fact that you're providing a face to this and humanizing this to show that, you are real people, which shouldn't come as a surprise. But I know, quick story, back in 2015 with our first startup, when we got some traction in the States, and we went down to Seattle and got introduced to a VC there, and we were just freaked out. We didn't know what to expect. And once they started having a conversation, and it was just relaxed rather than 20 people at some big Sand Hill Road, boardroom table, it just relaxed us, and it made it that much easier just to have a conversation. So I'm thanking the both of you and also the three to come that you are humanizing the investor experience. And most of you have been entrepreneurs too, almost all of you, if not all of you. So you've been on the other side of the table. So there's certainly empathy that goes along with the curiosity and the tenacity and the resilience and all those other great character traits that you have. So it's, for me, it's more just a thank you for sharing your story, Thealzel. I have not heard your backstory, and I've known you for, gosh, almost five years now. So it was a pleasure to hear that.
It was great being here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely, our pleasure. So I'm just going to mention one thing here before, Bhavik, you jump back on here. So we are going to have one of our community builders that sponsors us here, that helps make the magic happen, as I put it, and that is Andrea Welling, who is the BC Regional Director of Futurepreneur Canada. So hopefully Noel and Pauline can get Andrea up. Apparently we've got about 130 people that have signed up for this, which is the largest that we've had in the last few. So thank you all for joining us again tonight. So while our good friends with SFU Venture Labs managed to find Andrea and allow her to access her mic and her camera, we will just wait for that. But the great thing with Futurepreneur, they have been unbelievably supportive with us as a supporting partner over the last couple of Can Startup Stories that we've done. And in fact, they are going to be sponsoring the next 3 for the rest of the year. So once again, just having that help from them, not only what they do with the resources they provide, but also the promotion that they do has just been incredible. So hopefully we can find Andrea there. If not, why don't we have either Pauline or Noel, perhaps you can turn on your mic and just let me know if you're able to access her. If not, I will stop. We'll just keep rolling as we do as entrepreneurs. We just keep going. Oh, as soon as I say that, then I see Andrea is slowly appearing on screen. There she is. Andrea, good to see you again. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. You know, doing COVID things like everybody else. We joked earlier before we started here tonight that now we're getting pretty good at these virtual events. By the time we get them really down pat, we're going to be able to see each other in real life again. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to have to learn new skills and unlearn some other things too, as we do as entrepreneurs. So Andrea, thank you for joining us. Yes. I'm going to let you share the screen here and tell us some of the great things that you are doing with Futurepreneur.
Great. Well, thank you so much. With Futurepreneur Canada, we are helping young people who are 18 to 39 who are looking or in the startup phase of their business. And when you're in that phase of your business, you may hit a cash flow crunch where you might need some more working capital. Maybe you're wanting to negotiate a lease, get some new staff, have a new marketing strategy, and you're looking for a bit of a cash infusion to your enterprise. And Futurepreneur can lend you from $5,000 to $60,000. And we also help you make sure that you're ready for that financing. So we help you with business planning, and we make sure that your business plan is strong with some cash flow projections. But what we don't need is any assets and collateral, and we don't need any previous financial experience. So we can really take you where you are and move you forward. Another big piece of our program that's really key, and I tell people you never want to do entrepreneurship alone. I did it myself as a youth. I had a business, an organic food company, and did too much of that alone and really wanted a business mentor, never had one. But with Futurepreneur, we match you with a business mentor for 2 years. And that's someone who can really help you fill in any gaps you might have. And no matter how much of a do-it-yourself entrepreneur you are, most of us need some help with some gaps. You don't know what you don't know. And a couple other things just to mention, we have a couple specialized programs. We have an Indigenous startup program as well as our Black entrepreneur startup program. So if you self-identify in any of those programs, please let us know. We'd be great. I'd love to help you. As well as our broad startup program helps all sorts of people start businesses in all sorts of industries. So feel free to be in touch. I've left my LinkedIn in the chat, and maybe I'll pop it in there again. and look wonderful enjoying this event. Glad to be a sponsor. And thanks so much for having me, Colin.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure, and nice to virtually see you again. So once again, Bhavik, I'll hand it over to you, my friend, to keep things rolling here.
Perfect. So the next person I'd like to introduce is actually one of my mentors and a close colleague of mine, which is Randy Thompson. He is managing partner of OKR, chairman and CEO of Valhalla, and also a proud owner of PW United, who just got promoted in the English League One to the Championship. So it's good times and happy times, and also on a board and an investor in many companies. So Randy, take it away. Let's hear your journey.
Hey, thanks a lot. And by the way, it's 5 o'clock, everybody. So cheers. Glad you're all here today. This is a good way to start off. I actually wasn't even sure after I was listening how I wanted to do this. I had a million ways to go. And this is actually, a lot of times I go into these talks and I know what I want to say. And I've got about 18 things going on. So I'll take a sip of wine, breathe, and then start talking. The 3 things or 4 things I got going on in my brain right now. And by the way, you noticed I'm actually that guy. I'm the white 50-year-old investor. So isn't that awesome? I'm so excited to be that guy. It's about time is what Ashley in my office says to me. It's funny because I could talk about what it was like being an entrepreneur and going into investing and having a real passion about why I wanted to change from being an entrepreneur to an investor, because I thought the whole process wasn't fair. Or I could talk about, the experience of, at Bhavik, I was trying to move the slide forward. What did I do wrong? There we go. Thanks, mate. There, I might just hit next. I could talk about what it's like the 240 investors we've gone and done, and we've put 72 million into startups, and about 35% of the companies that come through Valhalla Angels. By the way, Thealzel, I thought we were friends. You forgot to mention us in the Vancouver ecosystem, but actually, Thealzel and I have had a long history of working together, and Mike Voker is actually one of my mentors, and a lot of reason I wanted to go into this space. But I don't think those companies that get funding, I don't think we've done a good job of telling you entrepreneurs what's going on behind the black curtain. And I was thinking about doing that, but I have a feeling I've done that talk a lot. So if you're really interested on kind of the investor psyche, I'll probably talk about it a little bit, but I'd really encourage you to kind of look up some of the thinking that I have around that, because I actually think investor psyche is so disconnected from what entrepreneurs believe an investor is looking for, that I really think it's love you too, by the way. Yes, love you too. It's such a disconnect between, investors need certain things to be sustainable, and they want to invest in startups and love startups. And yet I think these entrepreneurs think that, there's this evil, dark heart going on in their investors. And as Colin already said, all the people that are investors actually came out of being startups. And I think there's an element of also the third thing that was going on in my brain is, what's the difference between an angel, a VC, and a private equity fund or a hedge fund in the corporate finance world? And then the fourth thing that was going on in my brain was, what's going on as a trend in the angel space is really, really important for all of you to realize. And that's why I love doing both Valhalla and OKR. I love the equity in the angel space and the VC space, but I also realize that this venture debt space that's emerging in the last 24 or 36 months is so critical for entrepreneurs, because you can actually get funded without giving up kind of control and equity. So there's a lot going on. So I'm going to see within 14 minutes, 12 now, if I can actually tie 4 strands together, and you can all give me a big at the end or a yay if it works. And I think we have to start with why we're here tonight, is to talk about the investor why. And my passion actually started as I don't like writing checks. I have to be honest about that. The least interesting thing about what I do is actually writing checks. And I started as an entrepreneur, but before that I was actually an economic development geek. I was a chief of staff for the tech minister in Alberta. And so I came from a passion of like, how do we make the place we live better? And when I left politics, I blame Lonnie McLean. A lot of you in Vancouver know Lonnie. By the way, I was a born and raised a North Shore boy that ended up on the wrong side of the Rockies. And my best friend was a guy on the wrong side of the Rockies who ended up in Vancouver, and he's one of the founders of Layer 7, if you don't know him. But Lonnie and I actually started our first company, Alberta SuperNet, together. And it literally started with Lonnie and I watching hockey, and Lonnie saying, hey, we should start a company. And I said, sure. Probably the worst thought process around being an entrepreneur. And I have to say that the 3 to 4 years that we had a tiger by the tail, the first internet service provider in Alberta, and just trying to hold on to that as young 20-year-olds with no engineering background and no CFO and no board of directors and all those things left me with some PTSD. And I talk about that a lot in base camp. So if you've done that, I won't spend a lot of time on that story other than to say that actually became my why when I became passionate about building an angel network and becoming an investor, which is I actually blamed investors for not understanding tech. And they were so busy doing oil and gas and real estate. It wasn't because that they were getting better returns. It's just they didn't understand tech. So my whole reason for being, my raison d'etre became, I've got to teach investors in Western Canada why they should do tech investing. And what I learned is that actually was wrong. And I have, you can call me part of the Rebel Alliance, now sold completely out to the Darth Vader's gang. But I really actually started to understand that, every company is fundable. And that's the great news for all of you. If I leave anything with you tonight, your company's fundable. But when I say that, it doesn't mean every company's investable. And we're so hung up on angel, and we're so hung up on VC, and we're also so hung up on, I raised this size around with who we're playing with, that we think that kind of our reason or our being, our cool factor, or whether we're actually making the grade as a startup, is how much we raised by who. And once you play that game, you've actually stopped really focusing on why you built a company. And I love using companies, and I know we're at Startup Vancouver, and I have this definition between startups and companies. And startups are that time where you have that little red T-shirt on, Startup Canada. I love it, but ideation stage is so awesome, and you get to do so many things and creative and spitball and change direction and all the things that go with startup. But once you actually start a company, and once you hire your first person or get your first sale, you have a responsibility that you don't have as a startup. I think it's probably like, think of yourself as like a fraternity or a sorority person as a startup, but married with children when you actually get your first dollar. Because there's this whole thing now about building something. And I don't think all of you understand that investors aren't just about the returns, they're about building something too. And they're looking for passionate founders that want to build something. Yes, that you're going to hear that all the time. Every one of us is going to say, you be you, and find your why, and all that, go get 'em camper stuff we're going to say to you. But that passion, that thing, it's got to be blended with, okay, I love you, I want to hang out with you, just doesn't mean I want to give you a check. And so connecting the why and who you are with, like, how do I get a check? Those are two different conversations. And how do I get a check is sort of like, again, being a teenager and asking your dad for $20 on a Saturday night. And they always make you ask, why do you need the money? Are you going to be responsible with it? Don't spend it all in one place. It's kind of like that. And having a conversation with an investor is about the responsible side of the why. I have a great story to tell you. This is kind of where we're like, I love starting this startup space. And Bhavik, I already know you're going to have to watch me on time. I apologize. So maybe just give me a quick message in chat that says how much time I've got left. I love doing startup stuff. I really love it. But this week we had a company out of the UK, and last year they were doing $1 million a month in GMV. And we got invested in that deal. Huge. And it was like all this investor, oh my goodness, we all got to be in. And it was like a rush to get your check in and participate in that deal and don't miss it, right? And sure enough, that company has gone to this year doing 17 million a month in GMV, and it's growing super fast. And what happened is I took it to a couple of my Silicon Valley investor buddies, and I said, hey, we're going to do this deal. Do you guys want to participate with us in it? And they looked at it and said, you know what? No, it looks okay. It looks good, but we have the opportunity to invest in these 3 companies. And I looked at it and I was kind of so deflated because I realized I was like bringing to my cool friends what I thought was cool, and it was actually just average. And why I'm telling you that story is that I don't think a lot of you have moved from the passion to the thought process that, Randy Thompson, Thealzel, Sheetal, Vanessa, Janice, they're all the people that you're going to talk to that are investors have seen 20 or 25 deals this week. And they found 25 passionate founders, and they found 25 people who found their why. And they have to figure out, they have to sift through who gets a check. There's only limited amount of money, and we love what we do. So for us, the way you change from being a philanthropist to an investor is that you don't, after you've made your first 4 checks as an investor, you joke, oh, that was so cool, and you actually get it. There we go. We actually get it wrong 4 times right out of the gate. You're going to ask for more money. I'm going to get hung up on your technology. I'm going to get fascinated by a mad founder. And the worst thing is, I didn't plan for other investors to come in and participate with me. So I actually didn't worry about valuation. I didn't worry about preferred shares. I didn't worry about something called an exit waterfall. And one of the things tonight, if you want to move from being a startup to, a grown-up kid with kids, and you're about to raise money, the best thing I can teach you tonight is actually look at an exit waterfall. Because as an investor, that was actually the way I've hurt myself the most, is not understanding how money gets distributed at an exit. So you've never hurt me. Entrepreneurs, you guys have never hurt me. It's my investing colleagues who have to make returns. And the further you've gone up that food chain in investing, the Series A, Series B, New York hedge funds, those kind of people, they're very corporate, they're very bank. They have a disciplined and structured and not very heart-attached approach to investing. And they don't care why I invested in you. And they don't care if I got common shares or a convertible note. I can tell you they've set up a structure that makes sure they get returns out to their investors. And as an angel and as a VC, I've had to learn that. So there's a lot there. It's like, how do I make sure that I'm in with the cool kids? How do I make sure that, Randy and Thealzel and others can get a return so that they can go back and do more investing? The more exits we have, the more time that we're going to get more investors in, and the more time you're going to have to find more investors. Bavik's going to cut me off. Thank goodness, buddy. But I'm really passionate about this. The last thing I'll say is you have a responsibility as an entrepreneur to all your other entrepreneurs. If you waste on investors' money, if you give them a bad experience, if they don't get to reload the gun, you've taken away capital from 11 other entrepreneurs. So be responsible, be disciplined, but have fun. There we go. Thanks, Bhavik. I appreciate it.
All good. You covered most of it. So we've got a couple of questions. And so the first one is from Connor is, what is positively unique about the Vancouver ecosystem? So focused on Vancouver, and what is it lacking?
So it's interesting because I have a thesis, and that's part of why we did OKR and Valhalla, is that 98% of the world has the same problem. And outside of Silicon Valley and Boston and New York, those places have a certain methodology, a certain way to work. The Jason Calkennises of the world call up their buddies, Travis and Reed, and they go do a deal together, right? We don't have that ecosystem. But what's unique for Vancouver, and I'd even say Toronto, is it's close to that. It's got its own ecosystem that's well established. The investors are sophisticated. They talk to each other. So that's something you should know as an entrepreneur. We all talk about you. And what's really cool in Vancouver, there's been some really good exits. And the thing about really good exits, it's not just about a good news story. It means all those investors got some more money, some wind in their sails, so they can do it again. So I think Vancouver's had some real positivity to the entrepreneur ecosystem, where a lot of times in Canada, I see a lot of this, a lot of hand wringing. And Vancouver's always held out as a place that may not be better than some of the other places, but the attitude's so much better because there's been some real good wins.
Next question. What is your favorite size of deal, and which size has given you the best return historically?
Wow. I would say early stage for me. Everyone's going to have a different answer. And that's the one thing we didn't get to is every single investor, but I think you're learning this tonight. Every single investor is different and has a different personality. But I love pre-seed. I love to be the most sophisticated angel in a pre-revenue deal. And then I've done my best there.
All right. Now going back to being this is about your journey. Who've been the 3 biggest inspirations in this world?
I appreciate
investing.
I don't know if somebody set you up for that, but I appreciate you saying that. So Lonnie McLean is number 1. I was set to be. Everyone laughs when I say this. I was going to be a youth pastor that went into politics. And my best buddy says over a beer, let's go start a company. That moment changed my life. But Lonnie and I had actually botched our company. And we were in a big world of hurt. And 2 angels that I actually purposely, so this is why I appreciate Bhavik doing this. I always will mention them. And Joe Saskowitz and John Corkby. And we got ourselves in a jam. We had somebody try to take over our company. And we met Joe and John at an investor event where we botched it. We did everything wrong. We did a product demo of the internet it was a monochrome screen with text. So never do a product demo, people. Never do a product demo. Anyway, we did everything wrong. And these 2 guys came up and said, I won't tell you why they did it, but I will tell you, they said, you don't need this amount of money. You need this much. You need this much for lawyers. We'll come in and help you. They literally were true angels. It wasn't just about the capital. They put 2 young kids on their way and saved us from losing our internet company. And Mike Volker.
Perfect. So I think we'll end up there, Randy. And Colin, do you have anything to add to that one?
Andy here, before we get moving on here. Most entrepreneurs, when they start out, and myself included back in the day, you don't really know what investors are looking for. Can you talk about, and all 5 of you here tonight have different, what we call your different investment thesis, your profile, what you're looking for, not only the stage a company's at, but even maybe the overarching purpose of what they're doing and also the sector they're in. Could you maybe quickly tell us a cautionary tale or missteps, maybe a quick do and a don't, just as far as how people that are looking for investment should behave in order to start to build a relationship rather than just become pretty much dead to you?
Thanks, Colin. So I'm about to get myself in real trouble. So the tweet of the night is going to be this. Be yourself and don't read Jason Calkennis' book. And what I mean by that is that what people don't understand is that the investor entrepreneur thing is a relationship. I want to hang out with you and I'm going to be stuck with you for 7 to 10 years. I'm like a business partner and you're like a business partner. And if I don't get authenticity, so we're all talking about investor authenticity, but Bhavik mentioned the mad founder. Colin talked about how exciting his relationship was when he went to Seattle and found a group of people that just wanted to talk. We're all looking for the same thing on both sides, which is this a relationship that I want to invest in for the next 7 to 10 years? And remember, Thealzel's right. We've quit with the 3 to 5 year lie. There's some deals, the hot deals that you try to get into, and we as investors try to fight into the A+ deals, but we're not going to get them all. So we have to look at you and go, is this person real? Is this the kind of person I want to hang around with? And you should be doing the same thing. So if you come into me with this overinflated Silicon Valley, my valuation is this, we're the hottest thing you've ever seen, I'm going to, take you to the moon and back. It's a real turnoff, but I know that you're getting coached to do that. I know that you're getting coached to go over the top and give up your Canadian authenticity and be all Valley, and you don't live in the Valley. And if your deal is that good, go pitch there, and I mean that sincerely. If you think you are the one, get on a plane, go to the Valley and pitch there. But if you think all I'm just trying to do is live where I live and build a really good, solid company and give some returns to some, good, solid returns to the people around me, then, that kind of authenticity will get you funded all day long.
One late question. Do you invest in specific sectors?
I do not. Bhavik will tell you he's never met a bigger deal junkie than me. I think I just love people's stories. I actually invest in people and their stories, and I'm a customer logo. That's what gets me. So if you have a story and you've got this tech, and I don't give me a demo. I actually don't even care about understanding tech, but I just know that Mercedes-Benz is going to buy 1,000 of what you're doing. I love the logo and I love you. Those are probably my two connections. And what you're doing to build culture, I would add that. So team, culture, and the customer logo. And then I'm industry agnostic.
All right. I think we've got a message from another sponsor. Is that right, Colin? To bring on board?
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks, Randy. That was great. Actually, we're going to do that between speaker 4 and 5. So you keep rolling here, my friend.
So then our next speaker, let's bring her on board, is Sheetal, founder and partner of Soho Ventures. So Sheetal, are you on?
Hello, Bhavik. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, but we can't see you.
Hello, Bhavik.
There we go.
Hi.
Yep, see you now. Yep, perfect.
Can you hear me now?
We can, yes. Let's hear your story about how your journey began and where you are now. Your mic's gone off now. There you go.
Great. Great, Bhavik. Sorry about that. Gosh. Okay, lovely. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks to Randy for that really impressive and wonderful presentation and life experience. And so I'm Sheetal Walsh. Thank you, all of you, for having me here today. I want to share with you my journey. And I think it's important because it explains, my trials and tribulations and tales all sort of contribute to why I got to where I got to and why I'm now a venture capitalist. So just very quickly, I want to let you know I came to Canada from Uganda as refugees. We came in 1972, and it was a really interesting time because obviously our parents, had to work very hard for us in Canada and positioned themselves to give us opportunities, etc. And so I was very grateful to make Canada my home. However, I left Canada in '94 after graduating from my undergrad to go to LSE in the UK, and I haven't been back for 25 years. So I'm so excited that Vancouver has been my first home after 25 years and returning back to Canada, and especially to have the gracious hospitality of this community has just been amazing. So what I want to share with you is some of the stories that I've experienced in this last 25 years, of which I've spent the majority of my work in tech and VC. I started my career after my degree, my master's at London School of Economics. I went to Dubai, and I know Kookai and the others were talking about being the first female. I was actually in investment banking, and I opened the Westdeutsche Landesbank's office in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates back in 1995, 96, when there were very few women at all in investment banking, let alone German investment banking in the Middle East. So it was quite a great character building experience. I then moved to California, and so I have lots of sharings, as Randy did as well, regarding being in the Silicon Valley. And what I did there is I joined Microsoft in 2000. It was a very interesting time, and I joined what was called the .com team, the .NET Technologies team, and I was an evangelist for .NET. And I went to Bill one day. It was a very flat company then, and I went to him one day and I said, you've got all these VCs who call you on the phone and they want to do deals with you from the VC side, but this isn't actually scalable because, we have to have product group discussions, and there's a whole process behind collaborating and syndicating it, especially with the VCs. So I said to him, Bill, can I please have the opportunity to create a venture capital strategy for Microsoft? And he said, yes. So I implemented a strategy, brought all the VCs in the Silicon Valley together, sponsored a few Pebble Beach golf course events, etc. Had a really interesting experience. And the whole point of that business model was to really make sure that startups could have a talking stick, somebody within Microsoft who was going to represent them, and then also bring the VCs together for a potential collaboration. So it was a really exciting time for me. In 2003, I realized, I wanted to go back to the UK. And I said, Bill, who's doing this in the UK or in EMEA? Of course, nobody was. And I found some really great mentors and people to work with who championed this vision of bringing the venture capital strategy to EMEA, based out of London. And it was a very successful opportunity and quite an honor to serve within Microsoft. While I was there, I also spent quite a lot of time in across Africa, setting up telecenters for farmers so that they could access internet, etc. So I'm telling you these stories because they all contribute to my thesis for my investment thesis to date. Microsoft was a great learning opportunity, got lots of amazing exposure to very incredible technologies and founders. And I was appointed in 2006 to be a deal maker for the British government's Global Entrepreneur Program. And there I worked with over 900 companies to bring them into the UK. These are all startups who, took the plunge and said, we're just going to go for this idea to relocate in the UK and leverage it as a platform to then go global from. I helped raise £1 billion in funding for several of those 900 companies. And what was interesting about that is that I ended up teaching masterclasses around the world, from Latin America to North America to all kinds of places. And so what I'm getting at there is that I was really blessed to have an opportunity to be founder friendly and to work with founders from around the world, who really are global in terms of their, not only their deliverables, but in their outlook. So that's been quite an honor. I want you, I don't have a deck and I don't have any visuals for you, but I'd like you to, all you listeners, I'd love you to close your eyes for a second and picture this visual if you can, because this is my next sort of trajectory in my journey, which is Shanti life. Imagine you are a woman living in India, in rural India, and you have no toilet, and it's nighttime, and the only time you can go to the bathroom is in the middle of the night when no one can see you because you need privacy. And you need to walk like 5 or 6 miles because there's lots of dodgy guys around, and you just don't want anyone to see you because it's not very nice. And so you find a place, you go to the bathroom, and then it's super dark and you're actually really scared to walk home. And it's really difficult for you. And you're thinking, gosh, I'm scared to go home now. It's dark. I'm lost. How am I going to get back safely? All of these things are in your mind. And you're also the breadwinner of your family, and you're also not feeling well because you haven't gone to the bathroom for about 8 or 9 hours. Imagine if you're in this situation and you have to go home in the middle of the night. So if you've not had a good sleep, you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to try and run your small business so that you can look after your family. So this was the next journey in my career, which was Shanti Life. I set up Shanti Life as a Canadian not-for-profit who's focused on bringing together business skills and not-for-profit ideas to be able to create a social enterprise. And what we did there was we created a model to help provide resources for entrepreneurs who are vulnerable in rural India. And I did a TEDx talk on this in 2009 in Alberta. And why I'm passionate about this is that when we talk about the Silicon Valley and we talk about resources and access to capital and, working spaces and all the cool things that we get to do as entrepreneurs, we don't always realize how lucky we are, that we are so entitled and lucky to have, a chance to speak with a Kookai or with a Randy or any of us. It's really quite exciting to have those resources. So Shanti Life was based out of the knowledge and idea that there are resources, and how do we get them to those that are vulnerable? With Shanti Life, we've been able to impact a huge community of people. And because we focused on toilets, we've called it a flush it forward model. So whenever a woman gets a toilet, they pay, it's all through a loan, because giving out toilets, surprise, it doesn't excite anybody. They actually want to feel that they own what they have. And so when we've provided microloans for these wonderful people to build their toilets, when they repaid their loans, it was recycled and recycled and recycled in a pay it forward model. So we call it a flush it forward model. Anyways, what happens after they build a toilet and they're productive and they're able to look after their families, we give them their next loan to set up their small business. So what's really important to me in this whole story and my journey is that, it's great to say, oh, we're in this ecosystem and we've got access to angels and we've got Starbucks and, we want 2 shots and there shouldn't be any foam and all of these kinds of things. We've got entrepreneurs who actually don't have access to any resources, and really empowering them through financial inclusion and literacy is very close to my heart. So it's been a really wonderful journey learning from those women in these rural communities. Alongside starting Shanti Life as a social entrepreneur, I also co-founded MetaCert in 2011, out of the UK. And back to what Randy said, it was an interesting opportunity because we went to the Valley. We left the UK and we moved to the Valley for our startup. Behold the wonderful ecosystem, access to capital, etc., etc. Really exciting times. We did raise funding from some incredible VCs, very smart board members, and we're really grateful for that. I'll tell you the story in a second of how that ended, or is ending, or is going to grow. But the point behind MetaCert is that we were really focused and are focused on online safety. It's a cybersecurity company focused on anti-phishing. I have all the scars of fundraising from the founder side, and also building and pivoting through difficult and challenging times. The exciting piece of that is now I'm back in Canada, and MetaCert has just done a huge turnaround. We've had some really great support from a lot of the community, and we really see that our cybersecurity anti-phishing platform is really going to help. So we're really excited to be back in Canada. Just back to Randy's point, the Valley and the ecosystem there is great for many things, but guess what? If you can't afford healthcare and you don't have the right visa, and it's really difficult to do business. So I'm so happy to be back in Canada. We've got such a wonderful ecosystem across our many provinces, which we really need to celebrate. To Soho Ventures, I started Soho Ventures about a year ago. We are the first all-female-led GP team. It was an accident. We didn't actually mean for that to happen, but I'm proud to say that we have done it. We are a £50 million fund focused on late seed stage, and we're really founder-friendly because we understand how difficult it is to actually access funding from smart investors. We really care about global solutions, and our investment thesis, no surprise, is based on my experiences as an entrepreneur and as a social entrepreneur. And that is, we focus on sustainable technologies as well as socially responsible. On the sustainable side, we care about enterprise, people, and planet. And on the socially responsible side, we really care about access and inclusion, economic participation, and digital safety and identity. And all of those things, of course, have to depend on a diverse team. I really believe that if you're going to have diverse products and diverse consumers, then you really need a diverse team to be able to create that. So it's a really great, interesting team of women of 4, and we're really excited to have this global strategy. What I do want to share with you are sort of 3 learnings that I have as I wrap up, and those are actually, one of them is stay true to what it is that you want to do, whether you're an entrepreneur or an investor. I'm Indian. I was supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer back in, 72 when we came, my mom and dad had a vision for me. They didn't understand for so long what I was doing, but they're just basically happy I'm back in Canada now. Not being a doctor and lawyer has allowed me to do a lot of things and make a huge impact as well. So number one, stay true to yourselves and true to what you want to do in life to make an impact. The second thing I want to say is timing is everything. If you're a VC fund, if you're an investor, or you've got your own startup, really don't push things at a time that might not be appropriate. Be patient. Be patient and be resilient, but also realize that, excuse me, I need another quick sip of wine. Sorry. Be resilient, be persistent, but be cognizant that everything happens at the right time that it's supposed to. Flubot's happening now, obviously, and that's why MetaCert is in a position to do well. Last quick thing, Bhavik, before I get shut out, is that I want to say, stay true to your values. If you have values about accessibility and social impact and tech for good, then stick with that. And the final thing I want to say is networks and mentors are really, really important. I want to say thanks, a shout out to Randy, because he welcomed me home 2 years ago when I came back to Canada after 25 years. I didn't know a single soul in Vancouver. And I went to an event in Vancouver. It was a Valhalla event. And I saw Randy and I just literally cried with happiness because it's been 25 years since I'd seen him. And so he's just been a really great mentor to me. So thank you, Randy. That's it. Thank you, Bhavik.
Perfect. So thank you for that. So a couple of questions there. The first one is being on the founder side, when you had investors sort of interested in your company and your projects, apart from money, what else would you say is really key to the right investor? What would you say?
Yeah, I think it's networks, Bhavik. I think it's really networks. So mentors and networks are really, really important. Passion is important. All of those things are great. But I do think if you are an entrepreneur, what's really cool, very important to an investor is to make sure you're solving a problem that really exists. Sometimes we entrepreneurs, we get so full of, what is that phrase? You can't see the trees from the forest. We're so deep into it that we actually don't know if it's actually causing a problem or solving a problem. So I think it's really important to make sure you're solving a real life problem. I think that's really key, Bhavik.
Okay, we've got a question here from Connor. How does making a deep technology product like Net differ from other B2B products like regarding revenue building and sales? Would you recommend building tech-focused products? That's what it's saying.
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. We focus very much on B2B because we see revenue opportunities. But again, it really needs to depend on what that is. Is it a marketplace? What is your actual offering that you're trying to get out? Your product or service has to find the best channel to reach the right customers. Is that deep tech? Is that a vertical solution? Is it B2C, B2B? You need to decide, and obviously you're going to know the best answer because you know your technology and how to make it reach to the widest community.
So as you were traveling all over the world through these various different parts of your life and country's journey, what's the best piece of advice you received from either a mentor or an investor or a partner that you've worked with?
I think the best advice I ever received was to stay true to my values, Bhavik. And I think we as Canadians, we're really good people. I have to say, we're really good people. And we need to remember what our values are. I think as Canadians, we've got a wonderful identity and we've got an incredible sense of humility. And I think remembering that and carrying that alongside our for-profit plans and to make a difference in the world, I think all of that combined gives us such great ingredients and recipe to build our businesses. So I think we really got to hold on to our Canadian identity and our resilience and the community that we have.
Wonderful. Colin, anything to add that I've missed?
It's just such an inspiring story, Sheetal. What you presented there, it's such an honor to actually hear your story. So I'm extremely grateful for you spending the time with us today and with our audience. I know with the comments in chat here. It's really resonating with your story. So one thing I would just quickly wanted to ask you, because I've heard kind of a consistent answer from the investment side and a bit of ignorance from the founder or entrepreneur, the please fund me side, and that is the relationship building side. You talk about a network, but it really is about building relationships and nurturing those and building what we call your social capital, right? And helping others before helping others before you're asking for something yourself. And unfortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs do that. So my question to you is, how long out should entrepreneurs be looking, even if they're looking for some seed money past that bootstrap stage, to be looking at? Is it a week, a month, half a year? What is your thought on that? I'm sure there's not one size fits all, but what are your thoughts on that as far as building relationships? If you need money, when should you expect to actually get that as far as building those relationships?
Great question, Colin. So, they always say when you're looking for money, ask for advice and vice versa. I think, I've met a lot of amazing entrepreneurs here in Vancouver who have been looking for funding early on, and maybe too early, I think. There are grants available. There are opportunities available without giving away equity where you can actually get some smart funding, which I think is if you can do that, that's wonderful. But I think once you've got a product market fit and you've got a pretty good, strong team and you're solving a problem and you've identified who your potential customers are, possible pilots, I think that's a really good time to look for money, because I think someone else brought it up. Sometimes VCs, they say, well, come to us when you're ready. And you're thinking, crying out loud, I'm not going to need you when I'm ready, because then everyone's going to knock on my door, right? So it's a very interesting question that you ask, because at the point that you start taking money, generally you start giving away part of your company. And so it's very important to, when you do that, to pick the right investors. First of all, we had to buy out some of our investors for MetaCert, I'll tell you, and I'm glad we did, because they were happy and we were happy. But at the same time, if you can get some customers and get some traction, that's a really great time to then go out and get some serious funding, because, getting money from an investor is like a marriage, and you're going to be with those people for a long time, and they're going to be there. They're going to be there, and you might not like them. So you want to make sure you pick the investors that you like, and vice versa. And also, back to your question about when to build these relationships. Yesterday is the time to build those relationships. I want to just close out by saying my 2 mentors, or my 3 mentors right now, 4 of them, Randy included, are people that I've known for 15 or 20 years, including Heidi Roizen, John Hummer, George Coelho. These are all people who I've known for 20 years, and I'm really blessed to have them. And I would encourage everyone who's listening, don't burn bridges. If you've got people out there that you really want to reach out to, go for it, and then really nurture those relationships, because you never know when you're going to see them again.
It's such a great point. And thank you for your response on that. And it's interesting, your comments about the relationship. I put about half an hour ago, I put in the public chat just that once you have a deal done and investors and a company are moving forward, that the length of that relationship on average lasts longer than the romantic marriage in North America. And that is a fact as far as the numbers. So you're looking at that, 5, 7, even 10-year relationship. So you're so right that to ask how you can help, don't make it all about you. And because you hear that all the time, I'm sure your email boxes are full. People can get a hold of your email on a daily basis. And hopefully, people don't understand that. Entrepreneurs don't understand that, how inundated you are with people thinking that this cold calling, smile and dialing, showing some hustle, that's the way to go. It's like, form a relationship first and take it from there. You have ones that now last a lifetime and will continue to do so. That's amazing advice and insight. So thank you for that. It's great.
Thank you, Bhavik. Thank you, Colin.
You're welcome. So Bhavik, I am going to introduce our other community builder that we have here, and that is Mehta Kanzal. If Mehta can join us. So Mehta is fairly new to Startup Canada. She is the Entrepreneur Success Manager and is spearheading for the Western region the Startup Community Empowerment Fund. That is another platform, I guess you can say, that's helped make this event happen. And I want to give you a few minutes here to tell people about not only Startup Canada, I did at the beginning of the show, of course, but also about the things we're going to look forward to, and also how the Startup Community Empowerment Fund is going to then help fuel not only this, but other upcoming events within our innovation ecosystem.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Colin, for having me here. Great lineup of speakers and investors. So my name is Naina, and I'm the Entrepreneur Success Manager at Startup Canada HQ here in Ottawa. So Startup Canada is Canada's leading entrepreneurship organization that aims to make Canada the best place to start a business. So we are in the same ecosystem, doing the same things, and we believe in collaborating and not competing with our ecosystem members. Startup Canada Communities Program is a flagship program supporting and connecting entrepreneurship networks that fuels entrepreneurship at grassroots levels. And Startup Vancouver is one such amazing community. We recently launched this new initiative called Community Empowerment Fund in partnership with Sovereign Insurance, MasterCard, and UPS to support community leaders to create resources like this one and share stories of diverse change makers to support marginalized entrepreneurs. I'm really excited to be here and hearing the rest of the speakers.
Thank you, Nina. How you doing? All right. So for our last speaker is Jessica, managing partner of IMP Capital. She did get disconnected. Hopefully she's been able to reconnect with us. There we go. All right, Jessica. So let's bring it home with your journey with IMP and your career in investment.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. It just seems to be. Can you see me? Because my computer had just froze.
Yes, we can see you.
Oh, that's really odd. Well, this is what always happens when you have a big.
I can control the slides for you if you want.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so you can see me because I'm just facing a blank screen basically.
Yeah, we can see you, so
wow. I
can change the slides as you need them.
All right, perfect. It's I might have it back. Well, thanks so much again. Lovely to be here. It's the best spot too. Right before dinner, and without anything to look at now. Oh, there I actually might have it back. Oh, there you go. So I can see it now. So my name is Jessica Wang. I'm the CMO and managing partner at IMP Capital. Just a bit of my background. I've actually started my career in the secondary market. I was the regional sales manager for Franklin Templeton, the big mutual fund company. Then after over 10 years, and as I was working more and more with institutional investors, what we call in the industry the smart money, I realized that more and more of them are going into private equity, early stage especially, as there's tremendous value to be uncovered. And that's how IMP came to being. We're a boutique VC firm based out of Vancouver with offices and partners globally, uncovering opportunities in North America, Australia, China, Southeast Asia, and the UK. And it's funny how this whole global network came to place, basically because we have partners located in 3 different continents. And right now, like especially during COVID, every team meeting we've been had, it's been over 4 different time zones. So it's a truly amazing experience. So there you go. Oh, I can control it now. So our mission, and passion had always been in innovation. We want to invest into talents and technologies that would be part of the big force shaping our future. And basically, we're looking for things that could change the way we live, we work, we learn, and entertain. In short, we're here to find unicorns at early stage before they emerge. And here's a map of a global, we call epicenter of innovation. And the marked locations are where we have eyes on the ground. Our approach is to go where the ground is ripe and actively engage in local innovation ecosystem to find our top seeds. So why do we aim for unicorns? Because this is the one area where it could deliver exponential, 10 times, 100 times or more return. Of course, in usual circumstances, the probability of hitting one of those unicorns are very low, thereby normalizing that risk-adjusted return. So, for example, if you just throw a dart, say the chance of hitting one of those unicorns are 1 in 1,000. That way, even if the exit return is 1,000 times, your risk-adjusted return are essentially none. But with our strength in global deal source and our experience and understanding of focus industries, we figure we could significantly increase that chance, say to 1 in 10 or even 1 in 5, which is what we're currently striving at. And that would result in extraordinary return with relatively small amount you need to begin with. So we're not looking to, so we don't need to raise that $1 billion fund like the Vision, the SoftBank's fund. We only need a few million in the beginning to get us to that $1 billion mark. So that's our style. We call it the precision VC investing. So our methodology consists of 3 parts. First, top down. So identify the trend globally and to see which sectors, which regions have those success factors. And then we do our bottom up, screening through our deal flows, particularly in those sectors that we identified. And lastly, we're very active investors. We provide input and help align resources. So all to help increase that chance of success of our portfolio companies. So today I was asked to share some of our stories, but because we've had such a concentrated portfolio and we're so close to the founders that we continue to work with all of them, that if I refer to any specific situation, even if I don't name names, I'm pretty sure they're gonna know. But fortunately, I think what would be really useful, in our case, is the pattern of what we have learned, because that's essentially, what will define our own future success. So I'll share that. So at first, we were attracted to the technology. I think this is very common for investors and founders who just entered that high-tech arena. You see the seismic shift in the industry, and you see all the possibilities in the future, and you're so excited. But then, over the years, we've come to realize that as much as having a unique leading technology is important, the more critical factor is always the people. And this is what we call, the PEEP. Like number 1, perspective. Does the leadership have a high enough perspective? Do they have a true understanding of industry pain points and areas of disruption? Do they have the foresight, into the trends and see what it takes to be a game changer? Are they ambitious enough? And execution. What's the team dynamic? Do they have the aggressive, quick starters for BD, for business development, and the strong follow through? Do they have that all round strategic top down view person? Adaptability. How tuned in are they about the all the major players in the industry? So competitors' moves. How quickly do they adapt to changes and reiterate themselves? Past year was a great example that shows the true color of the teams. When hit with a travel ban and physical contact is impossible, do you just wait till the storm passes? Or do you immediately re-examine your business model and identify your danger, opportunities, and strength? And perseverance. Obviously, I need to say no more about that. We've seen founders who met a great deal of difficulties and adversities, but the ones with grit, the ones that's always looking for ways to come back and give it their all. You know that they eventually will succeed. Maybe not even in this venture, but in the next, they'll find their way. So, but for a great team, with great technology to truly become exceptional, they need to be in the right place at the right time. So you need to be close to that sort of Goldilocks condition, where you have a big enough market that's ready for mass scale adoption. You need to have infrastructure that enables that mass scale adoption, and you need to have capital market that has smelled the opportunities and activities are increasing. So those are all important factors that would make magic happen. And that's where we realize our biggest strength is our global reach and our perspective, because different demographics, economic growth, and capital market maturity, and all those different factors, all regions are not the same. And if you actually have that perspective, if you dig deep into a trend of success of industry in one region, say China or the US, and understand the key contributors and catalysts to that success, then it's easier to look around and see where might be the next most likely place for that success strategy to be duplicated. For example, last year we saw the explosive growth of and mainly because of COVID, the growth of grocery and produce e-commerce in China, with huge companies and capital joining the race. And that had led us identifying and investing into Grub Market. It's a California-based farm-to-table e-commerce platform, as well as a software provider. Another sector, telehealth, is another sector that has really taken off here in North America throughout the COVID, obviously being a huge catalyst. Well, in addition to screening local companies, we were actually also looking at Southeast Asia as their population base, their healthcare needs, and the prevalence of mobile phones made it ideal grounds for the next wave of telehealth innovation. So we have just made an investment into a Malaysian, Singapore-based telehealth company that work with group insurance companies and multinational corporations to provide chronic illness management and wellness programs. But investing in out unicorns take time. So from early stage to successful, they scaling up to gaining market dominance, it takes on average 8 to 10 years. And as you grow bigger, there'll be more real world issues that threaten the growth trajectory. So we hold our conviction, and we gotta be very patient. But meanwhile, we stay very close to founders when they need to jump through hoops, or when they need to make that strategic moves at crossroads. Well, the good news is that we're now deep into this digital revolution, and the change is rapid, and the cycle of unicorn emergence is actually becoming shorter, and that definitely bodes well for us. And lastly, the famous quote, stay hungry, stay foolish. This is something we look for in founders. But more importantly, it's a culture that we instill first and foremost, throughout our own firm. Because in order to invest our successful companies, we ourselves, as investors, we must possess those qualities that you're looking for. To be a team that's always hungry for learning and growth opportunities. Because once you have those qualities, once you think you work and you wake up that way, and when you see one, you'll know. So here's a few of our success stories. Specifically, Apply Board. That was actually 2020's Canadian Unicorn of the year. And I don't want to go through much details, but the common theme here is that they all have, this is some more, they all have, vast market, at least $1 billion. And in the case of Grab market, $1 trillion market that's going through rapid change of digitization. And number two, there's no established new tech giant in their industry yet. So, which means there's more room for market leaders, even multiple ones, to emerge. And lastly, they all have a team that's visionary and relentless, and they're just always running. For example, I just saw Grab Market's CEO Mike said on his LinkedIn that their goal is to reach annual revenue of 100 billion. Right now they're at 1 billion, which is already very good, considering where they have come from. But that is the kind of conviction and the kind of ambition. And you know what? Like knowing him and his team, we're confident they'll get there. Well, good thing he didn't say how long, but I think we're very confident that they'll get there. So last,
Jessica.
Sorry.
Sorry, Jessica. We've got to be mindful of time. We've got a few minutes left here.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
Do you have one more thing to say?
I'm
done.
get
some questions in.
Oh, yeah,
right,
sure.
Perfect.
So this is some of the companies that we've invested, and I'll just show one more slides. And these are some of the sectors that we are currently focused on. So, if anybody is interested, obviously we'll engage in a longer conversation some other time. But thank you.
Perfect. So first question, I'll get right into it, is when INP makes an investment, do they join the board or the organization in some capacity? And how regularly do you speak to the founders? Because you say you're very close to the founders. Is it monthly to get milestone updates, or is it quarterly? Two questions there. Do you guys join the board? And the second one is, how often do you conduct engagement with the founders?
Yes, we do join the board if we're welcomed, and we do try to. And we, in fact, we have joined multiple boards, and we have been sort of key to the success and reiteration of many of the companies that we invested in. So, and the second question is how often? Well, there's a joke, like we want to be the first person the founders call when they face a problem. And then in fact, we almost are. Some of our PMs, like I remember this when we first invested in Apply Board, and then it actually shows how hard the founder works and thinks and how 24/7. Like the founder would call and they would be there 11 o'clock, and they would be, our partner Jackie in China. It would be like her 5 o'clock in the morning. But they'll have that conversation, and we're always there.
Question from Matt. Did you have a hard time having LPs buy into the long-term vision of 8 to 10 years before unicorns are created? Or do you have a strong enough history that it was really easy to sell that to LPs to say, that's fine, we know what you guys do, we'll just give you guys the money?
Well, it's never that easy. So, honestly, when we first started, it was partners' own money, and it's largely because for us, we're a startup too. So it's largely family and friends money who really believe in us, and they saw our conviction, and we're very lucky that they've supported us along the way. And as we started to have some performance to show for it, as we started actually investing out unicorns, as we started having exits, I think that really will obviously boost the confidence. And as Randy said, it's important to have exits. Once you have a successful exit, then LPs have more confidence and also the money, to be entrusting in you.
And one last question on a personal note: how did you fall into this industry in the world of investment?
Well, it's innovation. It's really I think all of the partners, the original partners, we had sort of one drive. We wanted to be part of something great. We've all had our successful corporate career where everything was good. Maybe it made money, but it always felt that there was something missing. And then so to me, venture capital really is that great outlet, because even though I myself, I'm not of any technical background, but I'm always curious, I'm always willing to learn. And then number two, through this learning experience, we actually got to be part of many companies that turned out to be great companies, and wouldn't anybody want that, to be that part of legacy? And that's what we tell our LPs, right? Like, we don't need $1 million from you. It's, let's say, 100,000, 200,000, right? And like our small seed could get you the future Google, Airbnb, and wouldn't that be something great to tell your grandchildren?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jessica. Colin, last words from you. You're on mute. There we go.
See, I triple clicked there. That's what happens. I just clicked too quick. Did my own self in there. So, well, first with our friends at SFU Venture Labs, if they can close down Jessica's slides there, that would be great, just so we can close the show there. So, Jessica, thank you so much for sharing your story there and bringing us up to speed on what you're doing with IMP. I was not aware of what you're doing on a global basis, and it is impactful and impressive. So what I love about this event tonight is the diversity and the richness of the storytelling that we've had here. And that has been fantastic. And Bhavik, you have knocked it out of the park. You have no choice now. You're going to be the official MC for every event. You don't have a choice. You've just been voluntold. So, well, maybe not. But I think with this one, this has to be at least an annual event now, that the investor stories are just amazing. And this is, once again, why we do these events, is to connect people to each other, to make everybody feel welcome and add that human side to everybody's journey. And investors are no different than entrepreneurs and everybody else. You all have hopes, dreams, and fears and aspirations, and you've all shared those with you tonight. And you've been very open and honest with that. And that takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to do that. And I thank you all for that. So with that, I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. As I mentioned at the beginning, at the top of the show, our next Can Startup Stories will be in the middle of July, and that will be celebrating Black entrepreneurs. So looking forward to that event again. And as I mentioned, we're going to keep rolling with the events, with the virtual ones for the rest of the year. And hopefully we will get back to in-person events very soon, maybe late 2021 or early next year. And as everybody's had a drink in their hand here for this virtual event, I'm really hoping that we can do Van Startup Stories once a month again, first Wednesday of every month, and get to see all of you that are in the Vancouver area to come and join us for that. But in the meantime, we can connect on a national level like we have here this evening. And as I said, we will be posting this recording on our YouTube channel early next week. So again, Bhavik, thank you so much. Our 5 speakers, amazing, with gratitude. I want to thank you again. And Bhavik, you have any last words? And we'll wrap it up here tonight, my friend.
No, I just want to thank the speakers who were inspirational, and hopefully everyone got a lot out of this. I know I did, for sure, hearing the stories and learning new things about everyone that spoke today as well. So great event, and thank you for everyone.
Wonderful. Everybody, have a great night. Take care. Bye for now.